Hey Super Art Gang, how you doing? Are you ready to make some DIY brushes? So I've been talking about this for a while on the Patreon feed, and it's all part of the art challenge. I thought it would be great fun to have a go at this. Now, how are you getting on with the art challenge? I hope you've been trying some stuff out. So this month it was all about using household items in your artwork. So I hope you found some interesting bits and pieces to play with and new ways of adding sort of mark making into your work. So one of the things that I've been meaning to do for a while now and haven't really had a chance up until now, and that's to just do some exploring of mark making tools and try something a little bit different, a little bit new, for me anyway, and just expand what tools I'm using. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to make some DIY brushes, so I hope you'll enjoy this little journey with me on doing this. So I've grabbed some things like fruit bags and stuff from just, you know, the usual grocery shop. That's what I'm going to try out today. And I've got some other bits and pieces as well to try out too. And I did think to make my DIY brushes that I could use chopsticks, and that would make it a full sort of like around the house. It would just fit the criteria perfectly, wouldn't it? But I've got a whole bag of extra chopsticks somewhere, and I have no idea where they are. So in the end, I decided to use sticks. And I'm really lucky as I have a mini forest nearby, which, considering that I am in a very urban area in a big old city, it's kind of extra lucky to have this park with its trees just within walking distance. So I went round and I picked up some sticks. Wasn't really sure what I was looking for, so I just kind of picked up sort of thin sticks that I thought would fit the bill. And once I got them home, I dried them out in the sun, then left them overnight to dry a little bit more because they were a little bit damp. It hadn't been raining that day, but it had been raining the day before, so they did need to dry out. Now for these brushes, I am mostly going to stick to the fruit bags. Now I could dig out some craft foam, it did cross my mind, and I might do that at some point to do some more with craft foam. But yeah, if you've got some craft foam, have a go with that and see how that goes for you as well. But I wanted to go more towards the fruit bags and try those out just for this one. And I have some other bits and pieces as well that I'm going to use. So I have some little strips of string, and this is actually from an off-the-page article that I wrote for a bookazine recently, the Cards and Craft for Christmas one, that was out in August. So I thought, well, once I got the project back, I thought, well, I'll take these bits off because I don't need it to be decorated anymore, and just use up these bits of twine and string for this brush. Might as well reuse it. So I think the first thing to do is to cut off the bits of plastic from one end of the bag just to make it more open, and then I'll see how I can attach the brush handle to it. And the fact that it is a bag is going to work really well. It makes it a lot easier, as I can just place the stick inside the bag in one end. And I've also got here on my table some other bits and pieces that I thought I would use to try and attach the bag to the stick, including a strip of fabric that's also from that article as well, so you reuse that one as well. Now it's a little bit fiddly doing this. It's one of those projects where you think you could do with having three hands, and it just takes a little bit of time to get it all into one place. And you want to get that fabric strip over the bag and just have it as tight as possible as well. So the bag's got to be tight to the string, and then the fabric, you've got to wrap it round tightly as well. And you could use glue to keep it in place. And I have got some glue here if I think I need it. And if I was going to use the chopsticks, I think I would definitely use glue to stick these in place, because I think otherwise it would just sort of slip off really easily. But because this is a stick and it's quite textured, the bag already has something to grip onto. So I don't think I'm going to need the glue for these ones. But we'll soon find out when they all fall to pieces. Hopefully they won't. And how I'm going to do it is I'm going to just tie some string around this as well. So I've got the bag on the stick, and then the fabric around the bag, and then tie it off with a piece of string. And we'll find out how long it lasts for. So once that's done, I can decide how long I want the brush end to be and trim off any excess bits. And I think I have plenty left here to make some more DIY brushes if I want to, so you could probably get quite a few out of this. And I'm actually already pretty in love with how this brush has turned out. I really hope it makes some interesting marks. Right, a bit of a tidy, and then have a go with the green fruit bag. So this is another fruit bag that I've got, and it's a little bit stiffer, so it's made from a stiffer kind of plastic from that orange bag. And that orange bag was one of those sort of stringy ones, do you know what I mean? And it's very flimsy. I think it is a plastic thread, that orange bag, but it's just a different type of plastic, so it's much more sort of fabricy, thready like, whereas this is just a much more plasticky like, if that makes sense. And for this one I thought I would use some leftover hessian, also from that article, and some yummy multicoloured wool that I've got, so that will just tie that off quite nicely and, you know, just make it look a little bit more colourful. And for this one, I will use some scissors to open up the bag a little bit to make it more like brush hairs. Because this one is more solid, I think it needs a little bit of extra work. Didn't need to do that on the orange bag one at all, because I think it was really good at shedding its pieces whenever I cut it. So if I was to cut into the brush, I think I'd probably end up with nothing left. Okay. So next is those leftover pieces of twine and string, and I think for this one, slightly different, what I'm going to do with this one is bunch them all together, and they're quite short, and I want them to line up. So I want the open ends to all line up, and it doesn't really matter about the other end. That's where I'm going to attach it to the stick. But it takes a little bit of time to line them up into a bunch of strings and threads and twine. But once I've done that, I just make a little bit of space in the middle of the other end and then poke the stick into it. And then I can use a scrap of denim this time, so this is from an old pair of jeans, and some string to hold this into place. And yeah, you really do have to do it as tightly as you possibly can. Once you get into the hang of it, it's actually a lot easier than you'd think. Oh my goodness, aren't these the cutest things ever? Even if you didn't use them for brushes, you could probably use them as broomstick models for your Halloween decor. They are very cute. So as you can see, all the ends are quite different. I'm not sure what that means when we come to do the mark making, so that's going to be really fun to find out. And I hope we get some different marks with them. Right, okay, one more to make, and this one I'm going to use this plastic strip from the bag as well. So you kind of can use pretty much all of the bag. So I've cut off the fixed ends where the plastic is fused. So I've got 2 strips of plastic and I fold them in half and stack them on top of each other. And these are a little bit slippery and a little bit harder to handle, so they take a little bit of manipulating to get them onto that stick end. And in fact I trimmed the stick end down a little bit because it was a little bit knobbly, which wasn't helping. But I eventually managed to roll the strips tightly around the stick. And for this, I am going to add a bit of glue. So I'm just adding a bit of glue on each of the ends. So there's 2 ends because it was 2 pieces that I'd wrapped around each other. And just add some glue and then add a strip of the fabric over that. And hopefully that will all stick together because some of the glue will be on the fabric as well. And then I can tie that off with the colourful wool. And what happens then is you get this stick with a plastic cone effectively on the end, and I want to make it more brush-like, so I'm going to go round and trim the plastic into little strips, but very carefully, because if I over trim it then I will cut my plastic strips off. And there we go, pretty adorable. So let's try these out and see what we get. And I'm pretty excited to see how these work. So, I mean, even if they don't work, I've got my Halloween decor sorted now for this year, but I really want them to make some great marks. So let's have a go with the orange fruit bag brush first. and see what we can do with it. And I'll just try to brush it out with the same acrylic paint for each of them, but I'll use different colours as we go. And the orange bag is the flimsiest, so the mark making is really light. And I'm actually working on a watercolour paper, so it has got a texture to the surface, and I think the brush is just picking up that texture in places. So I need to try these out on a smooth paper too, which I will do, but first of all I'll just do them on this paper because it's quite a handy mixed media paper, this one. And I'm also being very light-handed doing this, as I haven't quite worked out how much of the paint I need to load up on my brush. If I load up too much paint onto my brush, well, it's just going to blob, isn't it? And I won't get any texture, I'll just have a blob of paint. I'm just kind of working that out as I go along and see how much I need. And I wasn't sure how the brushes would work with water, so I'm really happy to see that it does. And it lets me wash off the excess paint, but it also holds some of the water too, which I wasn't expecting for these types of brushes. I thought they would just be too plasticky to do that. Okay, next up is the green stiffer plastic bag brush, so let's see how this one works. And again, I'm being very light-handed with it, not adding too much paint, and I don't want to overwhelm it in this first try. I want to really see what kind of texture it gives. Ooh, and when I add water to this one, I get some really interesting shapes, so that's going to be fun to play with. These are so cool. I can't wait to try them out on an actual project. Next up, let's try that plastic strips brush, and this one's gone really curly. So it's a bit weird trying to put it into the paint because I'm not entirely sure which bits actually contact the paint. So it's kind of just going over my whole palette, which is why it's a lot of different colours going on. But you know, that's quite a fun thing as well, because you can't control this kind of thing, and it just adds a serendipity that is really great when you want to make textures. And it's still making some really fantastic marks, and with water as well, so that's fun. I'm very pleased. Now finally, the last brush is that one with the strings and the twine. So this is probably the closest to an actual brush, and it will definitely hold water, so we know that going into this, that this will hold water. But let's try it with dry brushing first and see what kind of marks we can get from it. And you do get some lovely marks. And when you add more paint, so this time just adding a bit more paint than I was before, and you can sort of get some nice fun dotty textures when you dot them up and down on the page, and then some interesting line textures when you use them across the page. Yeah, that's really cool. And out of the brushes, I think this is definitely the easiest one to use, but then, you know, that's probably because I'm more used to using this type of brush, because it is the one that's most similar to the brushes we already have. So they actually worked out a lot better than I was expecting, if I'm honest, and I really do like the way they look as well. So I am really looking forward to having some more goes with these and actually using them in some proper artwork, because I mean the test run got some lovely marks, and it's going to take a little bit of time to work out how to incorporate those marks into a piece. But it was really good fun, so I hope you enjoy making your own brushes as well, and of course, you know, put it up on the community board. I would love to see what you come up with, and if you come up with some other sort of interesting things that you can put on the end as well, that'll be fun. Right, well, I better go off and, you know, try and make some projects with these, so I'll see you all later.